The one where we kidnap her. I was like, all right, cool.
Oh, but you have to tag it MLB Central though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why that one got on. But I sent some others.
Funny.
The other one that got on was I was just being a smart ass and asking if I was pointing out that Chris Russo sounds like Joe Pesci hopped up on caffeine,
Yes.
and I said, are they related? And they played it like 2 weeks after the fact, though. So it was kind of weird that it still got on, and then yesterday or 2 days ago gets on like an hour before or however long. But yeah, and Dave, if you're unfamiliar with that segment, they each of them had to come up with a mock trade that hasn't happened yet, and Flores did one, and I think it was Gavin Floyd or D-Row did the other, and then Lauren's, and theirs were realistic, and then Lauren said, well, I think the Red Sox could package up Swihart, Chavez, and Mata for Jake DeGrom, and you could hear him go, like there's no way that's going to happen.
That would be I don't want to go on a limb. That'd be the worst baseball trade of all time.
Yeah.
It'd be the Herschel Walker trade of baseball.
Yeah, that would be, I don't even know what that would be. That would be outrageous. I would love it. I mean, I'd do it in a second.
Yeah.
I would send Groom over there right now with that. Throw Groom in that deal too. I'd do it.
Yeah.
Just because of how good DeGrom is, and even if Groom gets to that when he's 28, you got DeGrom for 3-4 years anyway, doing it for you now. So I
feel so bad for him. Like, he gave up 3 runs the other night and took a big fat L. Like, he's 5-5 on the year or something like that, and he's probably going to win the Cy Young.
He better win the Cy Young. I'm going to be pissed off if he doesn't win the Cy Young.
Yeah.
Ever since he cut his hair, certain angles, depending on how the pictures are taken, he looks a lot like Tom Brady.
Yes.
Obviously smaller and skinnier.
Hair. Yeah, with a little facial hair.
Yeah. I put it up on Twitter a couple months ago, and everybody's like, nah, and I'm like, oh, I thought so, but yeah, and I mean, doesn't it feel like all them players are being held hostage right now on the Mets?
Yep.
It says they are.
Yeah, and with the Marlins over the winter, it was nothing but mutiny, dudes forcing trades left and right. But the Mets guys are whatever, we'll pitch here even though we suck. And,
The only player held more hostage right now in Major League Baseball is JT Realmuto.
Right.
Yeah. That dude has said he doesn't want to be there. He said, trade me. He said, I'm not signing an extension. And they came out the other day, I read it somewhere, that they're saying that they don't want to trade him and that they're going to.
He's untouchable.
They're going to try and talk to him and get him to sign an extension to build around.
Can you bring Christian Yelich back?
Yeah, he's 27 years old with 2 more years of arbitration. He's a UFA at 30. This dude's not going to sign. There's no reason for him to.
And there's no reason to keep him either. I mean, they're not going to be competitive within that window. So
no, they won't be competitive even if you sign him to a UFA deal. It's kind of similar to what they did with Eric Hosmer. Now, San Diego's a little more on their way right now, but they're still another couple of years away. At least 1 year away, right? Maybe, most likely 2 or 3. Miami's 5 years away.
Yeah.
So is Realmuto going to be ready at 34 years old when the team's ready? Is it even worth it then? No, it's not. Get rid of him now and get a prospect back, especially at this deadline where teams could use catchers for sure.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Houston might even send Whitley for him, honestly.
They might. I mean, the Red Sox might. If they opened it for him trading, I think the Red Sox would be all over it.
I don't know if we have the pieces for him, but I just feel like too many teams are going to jump in.
Houston, basically.
Yeah.
No, we can't outbid. I love that the Red Sox have jumped into these trades to drive the price up. Because I think they did that with Britton. They would do that with Realmuto. They'd be like, yeah, we'll give you Chavez and Swihart. That's how that conversation would start. And then Houston would have to, go up double from there, because that's not a bad package if you think about it. Swihart would be their catcher of the future. And if Chavez pans out, there's another infielder for third baseman for you. So not bad. It would have to be add in a few things there, but that's not the worst starting points anyway.
Right. Yeah. And also, I mean, what are some second basemen? Because when you mention Realmuto, I think of Whit Merrifield. Not that he's quite as impactful as Realmuto, but he's a guy that's on that team for, I think, another 4 years beyond this, and I don't think the Royals are going to be competitive within the next 4 years. Maybe on the fourth year they could be a surprise wild card team, but I think even that's a stretch. And so he's another guy who's there for no reason, and there's no reason not to trade him. And I would love to have him. And who are some other second basemen we can look at right now?
Do we want unrealistic or realistic?
Let's go with realistic, I guess.
So realistic, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of him this year, I just don't think maybe it's just because he's on the shitty team. Dozier's very realistic. I think they were holding him hostage a couple years ago. They wanted, the cream of the crop for him. Talked to, Chris Saunders again. We were kind of spitting the ball on around it, and I think Austin and I were talking about it too at one point. Chris says it won't be as much as you think anymore for him because of his age and his UFA, and that stinks now. They're not going to make the playoffs. If it wasn't, Groom or something like that for Dozier, I'd go get Dozier. I think it's realistic. He doesn't have to bat free. He doesn't have to be he'll be a 6-7 hitter on this team. He'll probably bat 6 with Devers batting 7th. And you could just hit the ball at the monster all day. That's very realistic, I think. I think that's like the number one most realistic out there.
There's not a lot of great second basemen out there to go get, though. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that's realistic, right? Be perfect. Scooter Gannett is the prize gem, right?
Right.
I've been talking about Starlin Castro for 2 months. I don't think he's available. He'd be perfect, but he's not available. So those three guys.
Scooter Gannett's the holy grail at this point.
It is. You know what though? Starlin Castro is still. I think he's still top 5 in hits in the National League. He's doing it on a bad team. He's showing up every single day. He's played in the big market in New York. He's a really good player. He will bat. He is a Pedroia type player. He will bat 280 to 300 and hit timely home run. That's Starlin Castro.
Another guy that I think is realistic that doesn't get talked about is Asdrubal Cabrera. He's on the Mets. I think he'd be very serviceable.
Yeah, he's definitely he's obtainable for sure. I think it is realistic. I just don't know if they're going to make another trade after they just got embarrassed for Familia. I don't know if you guys saw the aftermath of that one.
Yeah.
They basically didn't even know his value. They didn't know what they wanted for him. So Oakland called up and said, "You want these two guys?" They said, "Sure, I guess." Like, you tell me, is that a good deal? Basically what they did. I mean, Cabrera would be good. He's UFA as well. And you're not going to sign him. You definitely would have Nunez and Holt to plug in there. He's having a good year. 276, 280 the 2 years before that. So I would take him. It's very manageable. Now, that's another guy that I wouldn't trade Chavez for. I think Chavez has to be the bigger name. Dozier, maybe, just because of the power. Obviously, any of those other three guys we talked about, just ship them out tomorrow.
I think the Twins are getting to the point to where they're almost desperate to make a move. And you want to catch teams in their most desperate hour. I think there's a possibility to do that with Dozier.
It just seems like there's not a lot of value unless it's an elite player, because there's just a wide range of guys. I mean, we just talked about 4 or 5 second basemen, ranging from Dozier to Merrifield to Castro, and so there's none of them, because there's 5 of them. There's really no team can really fleece anyone, because they're just going to go to the next option. And the same can be said for pitching. Back into the rotation guys can be had pretty cheap right now. And I mean, look what we just did, with Eovaldi, and anyone can go grab a Lance Lynn or whoever, and there's your back end starter. And so I don't know. And the reason why I'm mentioning these guys, and Merrifield actually to me is the most intriguing of all those guys, because I'd love to have somebody controllable, beyond this year. And maybe at 3:30 p.m. on July 31st, Dave Dombrowski makes a call and just kind of sneaks one past every other GM, and maybe you get your Merrifield or your. I still think Real Muto is a little far fetched, but maybe something like that happens, or maybe Dave, you get your way and we get Castro, and
would love that.
Yeah, so I just think I just think it's a really broad market in every area right now. So and I don't think the Machado trade was really that epic. I mean, they got one great prospect and 4 maybes.
Yeah, I think they needed to do that though because of where their system is. You know how bad they are. I think they needed a surefire thing and a bunch of hopefuls because they gotta get bodies down there. And I think he will kick the tire. He's a good GM for this. Obviously, we talked about Dombrowski. He gets you a World Series. He doesn't get you to the World Series, right? He doesn't build you up the farm system. You already have to be a contender. He comes in and gets you those pieces that you need. When it comes to, calling on the 30th and 31st, he'll be calling everybody. I mean, he'll call about, anybody short of somebody on the Yankees probably. But I think it's going to be a middle-of-the-pack guy. But we just talked about the Twins, right? We're going to see them. And we could use a 6'7" power bat like a Dozier, right, at second base, who is better defensively than Nunez as well. So he would help you with the defense. He'd help you with the hitting, bring you pop. Perfect. Another guy on that team that we heard that I think we were in the conversation was Fernando Rodney, who has a club option here, so we wouldn't need him. We could check him out for it, having a decent year. And another guy on that team that could be a bat off the bench, someone that's been there forever, Joe Mauer. Now, he's got a full no-trade clause, and he loves Minnesota. But he's getting older. Having a really good year. Well, he had a really good year last year. He's having a good year this year. What's to say they don't ask, hey, do you want to go try and win a World Series? Because Mauer, Dozier, and Rodney, those 3 guys, that's when you go way over the salary cap. That's when you can give up, Chavez, other guys on top of that, obviously. Oh, not a groom, but those 3 guys that are old, Mauer's like almost 40, Rodney's over 40, and Dozier, and they're not going to resign. So if they can get something for those 3 guys, they all fit the Red Sox criteria, I think, right?
Well, Mauer sounds good, but he would have to DH, I guess.
Yeah, well, he'd DH. He could play a little first, depending on, Moreland. We talk about him all the time. He's having a career year, and I think it's because he is being managed the right way. But if he starts slumping, you could throw Mauer in there. He could DH. He could come in a pinch hit situation. If you make it to the World Series, I would love to have Joe Mauer come in on a double switch and pinch hit. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah.
And just more depth on the bench. You get guys' days off. Guys get hurt. I mean, Moreland broke his toe last year randomly. We could have used a guy like Mauer. So, I think that trade works out. I feel like, right?
Well, you'd have to get rid of either Moreland or Pierce at that point. I mean, it would just be a huge logjam. So, and I'm not saying we wouldn't do it for a guy like Mauer, but
well, he could. He would. He's not the number one guy. I think. I was just thinking of another guy on that team that could help out. I think realistically, Dozier and Rodney makes a ton of sense. Like both players on expiring deals, basically. We have a need at second. We have a need for a bullpen arm. Both kind of fit the take there.
Yeah, and they're coming to town, so Dombrowski can just make the short walk over to the other luxury box or whatever, and
Yeah, he doesn't have to leave. They can just stay. They can stay in town.
Yeah, last night I tweeted, I'm like, was Dombrowski in Duquette's office when the move got made? Because the Red Sox are there. They must have had face-to-face conversations, and it didn't happen, but yeah, so it's just weird. I'd love to be a fly on the wall and stuff like that. I saw last year, it was right around this time, it might have been this very week, John Henry went into the owner's box, and he doesn't always sit in there with Dombrowski. You see La Russa in there with him a lot, but John Henry was in there, and Rob Bradford literally counted the number of times that Dombrowski mouthed the word luxury tax, and it was like 20-something times. So that was a big factor because we had to get below that before the start of this year to reset the penalties. That's why no big splash happened last year. But it's interesting. It's interesting, and I don't even know who the GM is of the Twins, but yeah, hopefully there'll be maybe some talk because there are a lot of guys on that team that could be of use. And Rodney's been everywhere. I mean, the Red Sox might be the only team he hasn't played for.
He's one of the very
no
list.
Yeah,
He makes sense.